The first criminal trial of a former U.S. president is underway. Jury selection began Monday in Donald Trump's New York case. Trump has pleaded not guilty to falsifying business records related to so-called hush money payments. CBS News legal analyst Rikki Klieman joins me now. Rikki, before I get into the day's activities, there's been a lot of talk about how this is a weak case. Is this a weak case or a strong case, just stepping all the way back?
Well, it depends on your perspective. I think people thought it was a quote-unquote weak case because it wasn't about January 6th. It wasn't about an insurrection in Washington. It wasn't about taking documents from the presidential offices and bringing them when they were classified to Mar-a-Lago. Those were considered the serious cases. So when it looked like it was about hush money, that is paying off a porn star to be quiet, to silence her, it didn't seem so much like it was a weak case. It seemed more like it was a foolish case. But that's not a foolish case. Today, John, this was a solemn day in court. This is the first time a former president has gone into a criminal court to be put on trial. We need to take that very seriously. These would have been 34 misdemeanors, that is falsifying business records, kind of something about nothing, but they got up to a felony, and they were moved up by the prosecutor because he says the reason of falsifying the business records was to conceal another crime. And that crime really had to do, to use the judge's words, with election interference. It was the idea of the 2016 election that the prosecution says there's an agreement so that the public does not know about this payoff, which, by the way, otherwise would not be illegal.
Right. So it's not the hush money part. It's kind of misnamed. You know, I mean, hush money is the thing, but the real crime is what you've just described. Okay, there was talk about evidence today. What did you make of that?
Well, I think that Judge Merchan, like many, many judges in a criminal courtroom, tends to rule for the prosecution. There are some judges who are looking at the possibility of appeal and reversal, and so they tend to rule more for the defense so they don't make a mistake. Here, you had a situation where Judge Merchan says, oh, well, we won't show the Access Hollywood tape where President Trump talks about grabbing the genitals of other women as a privilege or perk of being a famous person, but we're going to let the juror see the transcript. We're not going to keep certain things out about this catch-and-kill scheme with the National Enquirer. It's coming in. Donald Trump, in terms of evidentiary rulings, for the most part, had a bad day.
And the catch-and-kill scheme, just to remind people, was a scheme in which the National Enquirer would pay people who alleged to have had an affair with the president, and in order to never publish the story in the National Enquirer. It was a scheme allegedly to silence those who said they had affairs with the president.
Yes, and again, that in and of itself is not illegal. This happens with these tabloid magazines all the time. The problem for Donald Trump is that by attaching it to a cover-up to conceal what was going on might, if a jury finds it, be considered an election crime violation. Or people may say, oh, no, he really did this because he didn't want his wife to know.
Now, they've got to pick a jury in New York with somebody who's probably got 100% name ID in New York. How does that happen? How does it go about? And how, given your experience, would you sort these jurors?
What we're looking for, John, on either side is not a fair and impartial jury. We're looking for the least partial jury for our side. So as I call it, it's not jury selection, it's jury deselection. Right. So today, Judge Merchan did a very smart thing, and that was that he took this panel of 96 people, and he basically said, if any of you feel you cannot be fair and impartial, you can raise your hand, you can leave now. So he got rid of a lot of challenges that they'd have to go through if people did not say that up front. So you're left with about a third of this panel, and this will continue on with individual questioning. Picking a jury is really an art form.
Yeah.
It is taught. I've taught it. And yet I have watched people who do it far better than I ever did. It's an issue of trying to find what I call the stealth juror. It's the juror who looks and sounds like he or she is fair and impartial. He or she doesn't really have an opinion. They don't watch any news at all. They don't want to be bothered with the news, or they watch all of them. They watch MSNBC, CNN, Fox, the major networks, and social media. And so it all kind of goes in one ear and out the other. And they want to get on the jury, whether they want to convict him and they want to make sure the jury, that the judge and the lawyers think they don't, or vice versa. The stealth juror is the dangerous juror here.
Because they come in with their own notions, not listening to what's being done.
No, because they know what they're going to do, or they want to write a book, or they want to be famous. You don't want those jurors.
No, beware of authors. Rikki Klieman, thank you.